Hello, this is AASHIQ everyone. Hope you guys are having a good time, and I am here with a thrilling YouTube session for today, and we are gonna be talking about soul and science. So let's talk about soul and religion on the first place. So probably all major religions, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, every religion believes in a soul and a body, and it believes whatever body does belongs to the soul as well. Whatever the soul represents the body as well. And as for science, there's no term called soul. It's known as conscious. Either you are conscious or either you are unconscious. Let's start with the earliest civilizations that have existed, just to have a brief idea of what humans believe a soul is to be. So Egyptians used to believe that heart was a soul and not the brain, and they even used to mummify their kings after removing their brains through their noses and kept all the other inner body parts. And let's think about Greeks, what they used to do. Greeks used to believe that a body and a soul were different entities, and it was let me just represent in simple terms. It's believed to be a light and a solid matter. That's how simple it is. But Christians believe soul and body to be very similar. Even when you take horror movies, you see a ghost. That's what Christians believe in, a ghostly figure or uh, a spirit that will show off your own body shape as a soul. And the first research for this began on 1800s by a doctor called Maguel, and this is a very cruel way to do certain experiments. But what he did was he watched 6 people die, and he took measurements just a couple of minutes before their death and a couple of minutes after their death, and there was a reduction of 21 ounce or 21 grams or 1 ounce, and he believes that is the weight of a soul. But since then nobody has ever come up with a new. And as for the world, 80% of world population believes in afterlife, and 45% of the whole population believes in ghosts. So and some believe, and 25% of population believes in resurrection. So what a resurrection is, maybe you be born 100 years back or 200 years back, and now you're here and you're recollecting all your memories. And there are such 120, there were 125 cases up to 2006 around the world, and that has helped scientists to understand if there's a connection between souls, because a soul has to be transferred directly for them to remember everything, or as a way of data so the first person we are going to talk about is a person called Jeremiah, who was born on May 2000 in USA, and he was from the day he was born, he was kicking on the to air and from his hands, and he's like he keeps screaming, asking him to be saved, and people thought he was being possessed. But later on, when he eventually started growing up, he started giving out hints as such. I have been crashed in an airplane which was around 1945, and he's told that Japanese has struck his airplane, and he has mentioned 3 of his colleagues that worked with him and died before him, and he even mentions the place that he even that his craft or carrier fell down, and the place he died, and somewhere around Pacific Ocean. And one more interesting or very important fact that makes me believe in this is the actual person who was James, who died in 1945 at the World War II, had a sister called Anne, and she was actually alive at the time when this was happening. Hence, the whole family visited Anna, and during the conversation, the boy asks Anna about a picture that is 50 years old, older, that only she knew because none of the family members were alive at the time. And she was surprised, and even the scientists and doctors were surprised on these kind of information that the boy was giving. So these are not actual proofs of existence of a soul through science. And if you ask me if science have found an answer for now, no, they have not. They have not proved a soul or existence of soul or assured us the proofs of existence. But I can tell you that there are many researches that are happening. So these are not actual proofs of existence of a soul through science. And if you ask me if science have found an answer for now, no, they have not. They have not proved a soul or existence of soul or assured us the proofs of existence. But I can tell you that there are many researches that are happening on this behalf and behalf alone. And let me go tell you some of the researches that are being conducted at the moment. One neurosurgeon uh, has taken a military personnel who is disabled or brain or considered to be brain dead, and he checks through MRI if he can actually hear even though his brain is dead, and if his brain, even though he can't communicate with us, if his brain cells are still functioning with the same actions that it would require. So when he says, imagine you walking into a room, certain parts of his brain still is active as a normal person's brain would be. So they believe conscience and a brain are two different things just by these reasons. Uh, and from there onwards, each research has gone on on. And another research that proves brain and soul are two different matters would be a research done by Dr. Carl Morris. What he did was just the use of anesthesia, which puts our body into numb state and our brains. And at this, using this drug, he found out that what he does is he injects these and puts the patient into anesthesia, and he sends a light beam through their eyes, and the brains, they work as normal, or how a normal brain would react to those light particles. But it is proven scientifically that people under anesthesia do not dream or do not remember the time being that they are being under anesthesia. So that alone proves that soul or And something new that doctors or physicians have found out was that you can use complex quantum physics to find out if a soul and brain is the same, or conscious and brain is the same. And it was proven wrong even with cardiac arrest that happens around the world. Most of the cardiac arrest people who were known to be dead for some minutes or some time and who comes back alive are known to not have a. And another researcher, but he goes through a different tactic most of the time using LSD visualization drugs. What he does is, professor, he goes towards Latin American parts, and he has a drug that he looks into, ayahuasca. It's called India. It's an Indian word. What that does is increases your visions and heightens your consciousness up to the maximum amount of Buddhist trained monk. So he actually, I've seen the videos. He actually tries these drugs, and he keeps all his MRI scans and all these neuron readers just to see what kind of heightened state his brain reaches to, and it actually even surpasses the monk's brain levels or capacities, and he's actually very triggered with these findings that he have. And another person or an inventor called as Henry Markham, started building a supercomputer or a biological supercomputer 15 years back. If I'm to say, put this in simple word, it would be like the supercomputer that was in Captain America, that could think of its own. So what he is doing is to get actual conscious. They are trying this out. They are getting live brain cells, but not from humans, but from rats, which have very similar neuron patterns as humans. So what they take is take a piece of brain tissues, put it in artificial brain tissues, and they keep it alive for a couple of days or a couple of hours, and then they separate. They take one neuron at a time, take the whole complex branch, and make a huge supercomputer out of it. And they've done this about 100 times right now, so they have 100 supercomputers working with each uh, data that they have been given. So he says from this point onwards, it's just a process of multiplying these supercomputers together, and just making billions and billions more neurons together or combinations together. So we are waiting eagerly to see what he might come up with. One of the most impressive researches I watched is on singularity and soul science. What they believe is they can find out a soul through machines. So a creator called Hiroshi Ishirago, by accident he actually created an android that looks like him, and even can give facial movements, hand movements, depending on situation. But being not satisfied with it, he created another robot that even could mimic facial expressions, laughter, cry, emotions, and some it's and he says it's all subjective to people. If a person sees that robot, and some people say it's alive, some people would say it's not alive. It's just a subjective way of looking at it. And he has even created a robot assistant therapy called Pharaoh, just to help older people go through depression and sadness and loneliness. How it does is it reads emotions of its owner, and it even makes up a personality for itself eventually with the owner. So what Ishirago wants to do is, now he has made a human-like robot, and it can do most of the things that humans can do. He's just trying to complex the brain of that machine, and then reverse engineer it into soul component. Just reverse engineer it to soul component and see what our other researchers have been missing. None of these researches have been yet completed, hence you will be getting another video on this in maybe a couple of years. Hence do wait for more information, and if you did like, drop a like, and do let me know what other topics you want me to discuss on. And I'm always here, guys. Until next time, AASHIQ out.